to it. All right. By now, do you guys understand STLC? So we're going to spend some time in STLC, and STLC is nothing but the process we do here in system testing phase, right? We are still in SDLC, learning SDLC. As part of SDLC, we perform our STLC process, and this is right here, right? So we're going to continue this. By now, does anyone know what are the different phases of STLC? From new batch, anyone have the understanding of the different phases of STLC?
Kadir, right? Are you saying as DLC or T?
T, STLC.
Okay. Same. From what I understand, we just covered the requirement phase from the last class, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you know what is the next phase, or anyone knows?
The
it?
next phase
system test
is
plan.
Yeah, Mazarul, go ahead.
creating the system test plan.
Okay, and after that, are you able to name all the phases
After
of
that,
STLC?
oh yeah, then you create test case, create RTM, set up the environment, do the create test analyze report TAR,
Mhm.
and then you go into the test execution phase.
Thank you. Very good. Thank you. Yeah, if you guys have time, you have access to this document, not this document, this document, look through it. It's going to help you. So we're learning, we're in STLC. STLC right here, right? Testing phase, analyzing of the requirement, and then creating test plan. So let's learn about test plan. Right now, I think everybody should be very clear about requirement and how to handle the requirement. Similarly, let's learn about test plan and what is the test plan. This is a very, very important topic, and in interview, they want to know that you know how to create a test plan. You have full understanding of test plan, but in reality, when you go to work, no, trust me, you would not have to create a test plan at all. And even if you do create a test plan, there should be a template in place, and you can create off that template. If the worst case scenario, they don't have a template, you can Google it. You're going to find like thousands of them. Select one, customize it according to your company's need. So this week, we're going to talk about test plan, and test plan is nothing but the entire planning of your testing. So let's see if we have any description written about test plan. We should, right? Okay, right here. So under STLC part 4, you're going to see test plan, create system test plan. Test plan is a detailed document that explains how the entire testing will be done. A typical test plan contains cover page. This is a document, right? A test plan is nothing but a document. It talks about, how the testing is going to be done and everything. So let's see what's in this document. Obviously, every document has a cover page, table of contents, introduction, which is normal. Every document has introduction, purpose of that document, scope, testing approach, test entry criteria, test exit criteria, test acceptance criteria, test deliverables, test schedule, roles and responsibilities, test environment, acronyms, risk assessment. So this is a standard test plan. Like these are the things a standard test plan should have, but that doesn't mean your test plan or your company's test plan may have this. It could be a bit different, but this is a standard test plan. And for the interview, right? If you can explain when they say, you have any idea about test plan, just go right in, just say yes, it's a detailed document I have created in my last project, and a typical test plan have this bullet points. If you can give them that, they will be very, very happy. Half of your job is right there. Okay, so let me show you a physical test plan, and then we're going to go over each of these points. I can pull something. We have something. This is just a test plan we created 2015. Yeah. This is for IT solutions. but I will show you one from my real project in a minute. I'm just scrolling through this just to show you. This is a test plan, test plan. Like here, we created it. But let me just pull something from my actual project so we can see it. Sorry. So we should have something here. This is effort. Okay, so this is a test plan I created for my company. Let me download it and then we can go over it quickly. Okay. Are you guys able to see my screen with the test plan?
Yes.
Yes.
Cool. Okay, maximize it. Here you go. Okay, so this is the company logo and this is the theme of the company. And obviously, this is the cover page, right? We're on the cover page right now. And obviously, this is the test plan, project name, and release. This is the release, MVP release, and this is the version. Version is 1.0. So this is the document version. We talked about document versioning before, right? And I'm sure you guys already have ideas about document version. And this is the release version. This is MVP, but ideally you should have like, 1.0.0 release maybe. And next release, it would be depending on the size of release. If it's a big release, it would be 2.0. If this is a small release, it would be maybe 1.1. That will change. So the first number represent major functionality. Next number represent minor functionality. This number represent hot fix or the patch releases. Just note down hot fix and patch releases in a piece of paper, guys. We're going to cover this in later. It would not make sense to cover it today because you won't understand. Just somebody note it down and we'll discuss it eventually, right? Okay, so let's say any questions about release version and document version. This is important that you understand this, and so you can relate to it when you go to work. Seems like you guys understand. Again, this is the initial.
Kadir, right, just a quick question. You said 1.1.0. So that the middle one, what did you say that's referring to again?
So first, do you understand what this is? What this number is representing? Like as a whole?
Yes.
Okay. So the first one is the major release, second one is the minor release, and the third one is hard fix or patch. So let's say if there is issue got caught in production, and then obviously you need to release it, you need to push it to production, you need to put it under a release, and that's when you're going to change the last number.
Okay.
Okay, so basically again, guys, this is tied to the application project. So let's say you're working in Facebook. You guys will understand Facebook better. So Facebook initial version would be 1.0, right? 0. This is your Facebook whenever it came up. Facebook very first release, and then you know how Facebook every 2 weeks or every month or every other month they have a new release version, or iOS too. iOS also, right? The Apple iOS. Every 2 weeks we see a pop-up, hey, your software has an upgrade, and you click on it, it upgrades your software. So this is nothing but each time they're making a new upgrade, and depending on the size of it, right? If they're making a small changes, it will change this number. If they're making major changes, it will change this number. If let's say on a previous version there is some bugs or issues in the production, this is when they will change this number. And when it comes to this versioning, this is tied to this document, right? This, when I created this document, initial version, I'm going to say, this is my first version. I created it, I shared it. As long as it stays with you, you don't need to change the number. As soon as you share it with someone else, that's when second person or third person or 20 people has access to it. That's when you need versioning. If you make any changes, right? Say, tomorrow I make a small change right here in the second page. I delete whatever. Let's say I delete something, right? This doesn't make sense, or I add something. I'm going to come here and change my versioning. So next time, if anybody looks into it, they will not look into 1.0, they will look into 2.0. They will be like, oh, this is the latest one. Let's not look into the old one, because the old one is old, right? Someone already made changes to it. So depending on the size of changes, you can change the numbers. If you make small changes, you can change this number. If you make big changes, you can change the first number. So I hope it's clear. Let's continue. So this is the cover page. In the cover page, obviously company logo and theme is there, and version and release number. Then obviously here we have the document history, who worked on it, prepared by, reviewed by, approved by. So Tamit created this one. I reviewed it. She reviewed it. She approved it. She's business analyst. Sorry, product person. Okay. Initial version 1.0, reviewed and approved date. Okay. Moving on. Table of contents, like we said, this is just a navigation, right? What's where, you can find it in this page, and this is clickable. You can just click on it. Let's say you want to navigate to a specific page, you can just click here and it will take you to that particular page. So that's table of contents. And then next, introduction. Yeah, excuse me. Here you have introduction, like, under introduction, you have document purpose of the document, project summary, project objective. So this is nothing but a template, right? You just need to make minor changes. Everything else stays the same. Test objective. Scope of testing. This is very, very important to you as a tester. What's in scope of testing and what's not in scope of testing. If we see here, out of scope. So let's cover this. This is very, very important. Here you're talking about the type of testing or the things you are going to be performing as part of your testing. You're going to define it here. And right now it's not going to make sense to you. These are different type of testing. We have not gone over this yet. Eventually we will. Like smoke test is a type of testing. Sanity test is a type of testing. End-to-end is a type of testing. Functional test, regression test, cross-browser test, database test, unit test, load test, stress test. What else? Volume test, endurance test. These are the things we're going to be performing as part of our testing. And you can see here, like, which environment we're going to test, who is responsible to perform those tests. Everything is defined here. The documentation, which documentation we're going to refer to, and everything is here. Details about those are here. So just understand, in scope testing, you're going to define what are the, as part of scope of testing, right? You're going to define in scope and out of scope. And in scope, you're going to define what are the different type of testing you'll be performing. Out of scope, if you look at out of scope, we're saying we're not going to perform any mobile testing. We're just going to perform, everything else but mobile testing. So we are letting them know. So this document would be shared with the entire team. If you have external client, they will have access to it. If you have your business, your product, they will have this access to this one. Managers, developers, everybody will look at it and say, hey, QA team has given us their plan. Let's go look at it. They'll look into it. If they have any questions, they will come back to you. But your job is to let them know, hey, we are going to perform this. and we are not going to perform this. If you have any issues, let us know, right? So you're defining this right now. Going through this document, it would be difficult and hard, but this is very, very simple. And why I say it's very, very simple, I'm trying to give you the best. I'm trying to give you the proper knowledge of the test plan. And trust me, nobody in this industry will go to this detail level of explaining test plan. And if I don't do it now, you will not have clear understanding of a test plan. And as a QA, you must understand this. In your interview, they might just ask you, do you know how to create a test plan? And you say yes, they may move on. Or some with knowledge may ask you, hey, do you know what's a scope of testing in test plan? Do you know what's in scope or what's out of scope? And even if they don't understand, you as a QA, we here try to build career, not just give you one job. And, it might sound difficult now because we are going through very detailed level of explaining test plan. But once you go through this practice and the class, this is going to be very easy. This is very, very easy things. Okay, so out of scope, we said mobile testing is not in scope. We're not going to perform testing in mobile testing. And then roles and responsibilities. This is simple stuff, right? You define who's what and what their roles are. So we have product, this guy, and then manager, this person, and then their responsibilities. This is template. You would never have to change this. This is a template. You just need to change the name. QA lead, QA engineers, as a lead, what are your responsibilities? As an engineer, what are your responsibilities? Tech leads, these are dev leads, basically. TPO, technical product owner, Scrum Master. So these are the roles and these are the names. So you just probably, if you're creating a test plan using this template, all you have to do is just change the names according to your company. This is another very, very important part, test entry criteria and exit criteria. This is where you're defining and explaining how you're going to enter and exit your testing. Like I always say, software testing is a process-oriented job, and you can see the process here, right? You cannot just because that application is given to you and accessible, you just don't go and start testing. You need to understand, what are the process, what are the checklist, what are the things you do before you go into your testing. So as you can see, right, here, test entry and exit criteria. How do you enter your testing and how do you exit out of your testing? So you define this here, right? This is your test entry criteria. This is your test exit criteria. Here you are saying all planned tickets must be fixed. And you're talking about certain testing to be done and delivered to QA. So this will not make sense right now. You will understand it later on as we cover other stuff, right? So you're saying all the tickets, right? Before I think I showed you guys the tickets that we create in my project. Let me just quickly show you, so it will make sense. So this is a project, and you see these are nothing but, let me go to the backlog. These are nothing but tickets, right? Each one has a number. You see 2018, 3277. Each one of them has numbers, and each one of them represents something. You see here we have 15 tickets here and 20 tickets there. And this is the project. This belongs to this project. Now, right here, the AHP is a project and Senior Cats is the team. Now, as part of your test plan, you're saying all of these tickets must be fixed before you start testing, must be fixed by the developers. And this type of testing, unit testing, is performed by developers. This is one of the tests is performed by developers. You guys should know by now about unit test. We talked about it a little bit. So this is one of the testing must be done by the developers before we start our testing. This is your one checklist. Second thing, the test environment must be in place and ready to use. So I have given you guys demoed about this before as well. let me quickly show you one more time. So remember here we have 1 environment, 2 environment, 3 environment, 4 environment. Remember we went over this. You see dev environment, QA environment, pre-prod environment, and this is production. So now here what you're saying as part of your test plan, you're saying the test environment must be ready for system test. So this is the test environment. You see where it says QA? This is the test environment. So developers will work on this environment first. They will work on it, make sure it's working. It's their environment. Once it works, they are going to come and build this environment. Before this, the QA environment is not going to be ready. Guys, feel free to ask questions. These are very important topics that I'm going over. It's very important that you understand. So first, dev environment will be built and application will be deployed here, and they will do their testing. And when they're doing this internally, we will not have this environment. This will be nothing. So you were saying as part of your test plan, we want our environment to be ready before we enter our testing. And this belongs to developers. Developers must, I mean, this belongs to us, but developers has to configure it for us. They have to give us the environment. They have to send us the code here. So we are saying, okay, give us this environment before we start testing. Now, fine. Required test plan and test data created. So test plan is what the document we are showing right now. That's the test plan. So we are saying that has to be created, and smoke test checklist should have major functionality working. So we are saying not only you are just giving us this application, also this application should be stable in a sense, like I'm able to log in, I'm able to see the UI, I'm able to see the major functionalities working fine before we start testing, right? These are your 4 test entry criteria. There are more. We're going to talk about it as we go further in this course. And right now, those may or may not make sense. Exit criteria. Now you have entered your testing, you have done your testing.
Excuse me, brother, I have a question. Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, that's fine.
When you showed that QA environment, all the points they're developing, points mean I believe the module or the functionality they're developing. When they done their unit and integration testing, is they push to QA one by one, or they just take a bunch from there and push?
You're talking about tickets, right? Very good question. That's good. Okay, good question. Okay, so how do they push this, right? So you see right here, there is a thing called sprint 4, right? Sprint. So, and you see, like, there is 2 part to this backlog. This is a backlog, right? There's one part has 15 tickets, and there's one part has 20 tickets. So what they did is, and you see starting time March 1st and ending is March 15th. So they said this 15 ticket we can complete in 2 weeks. So created a board with the sprint which separates these tickets, right? This 15 tickets, and they're going to complete these 15 tickets by March 15 and push it and one shot this 15 tickets to QA environment, and we will test it there. And then when they're done with this 15, they're gonna select maybe all 20 or maybe 10 or 15, depending on how much they think they can complete, and then they will push them at once. Does it make sense?
Yes, thank you so much.
No problem, brother. All right, let's continue. Exit criteria. Now you have finished your testing. Now, how do you exit? You cannot just exit without a proper process in place. So before you exit, you are going to make sure all test cases based on Jira should be executed. So test cases are something that we're going to learn next week. Test cases are our step, like, step-by-step process that we would be performing to ensuring the quality of the software. We're going to learn about it next week. Those have been done. And then any defects that you find in that application. So when we test, we're going to find defect. So we are saying what we need is all the major right here. These 2 points talking about same thing. All high critical priority defects part of the release has been released, retested and closed. So all the tickets we find, right? We're saying all the issues we find, all the bugs we find, we're saying all the high priority critical major, the big ones and the medium ones must be fixed and retested and closed. Now there might be small bugs open there that we will find, developers and the business may look at it and say, hey, yeah, we found this bug, thank you, but we don't have time to fix it. We're going to fix it later on in the future. That's fine, as long they sign off on it, as long they know it, they acknowledge it, that's fine. All regression testing is complete. So this is one type of testing that we are saying we perform at the end to make sure that all application is working fine, and is fixed, is done basically. Okay, so these 2 bullet points are talking about the same thing differently. All we're saying, like before we sign off, we're going to perform another round of testing to make sure that it is working fine. Okay, fine. Ignore this. You don't need this. You don't need this. Yeah, so this is a fancy test plan because I implemented it. I spent quite a bit of time here. And you don't need, this is very fancy test plan, and you don't need this. You just need to learn a simpler version of it, but I'll go over it, and it's going to make sense to you. All you need to understand is cover page. We went over table of contents, introduction, purpose, scope, right? Scope is like in scope and out of scope, right? And test approach, like test methodologies, things like that. We're going to go over test entry and exit criteria. We just went over, right? And let's continue. And now here in this template, it's talking about test deliverables. Test deliverables are nothing but the documentation that you could perform, you could provide during your testing. If you look at this here, this is a diagram is showing, like, requirement is one deliverable, test case result is a deliverable, bug results. Ignore this. Ignore it for now. You don't need this. Also, you don't need this. Let's simplify reports, tools. So this is talking about what are the different type of tools that you need to test. Like Jira is something we're gonna work on here. Postman we're gonna use here. X-ray we're gonna use here. Selenium is for automation. We have it. Those who wants to learn, we will happily provide that. Test strategy and delivery team. Ignore this. This is too fancy. It's not needed. Let's see what else is here. Bug life cycle. We're going to go over that. Severity priority. Okay. Test environment. We just went over, right? Environment, like, environment has this type of URL. If you go here, you're going to see URL, right? If you grab this, this is nothing but what it says here, right? In HTTP and the URL. So it's talking about your test environment, and if you need credentials to log in, like UI credentials, database details and credentials, things like this. Risk, right? So this is also important, right? You want to talk about risk upfront and the dependencies that you may have. Usually, the type of risk we see in the industry is defined here. And also, this is something is often asked in the interview. For example, they would ask you, like, what are the challenges that you face in software testing? And how do you overcome those? So this is same thing here. We're defining, like, poor documentation. If we have like poor documentation is not given or written properly. That's one. This one major issue. So here is we're saying like requirement document, and we're defining all features should have full and detailed specification. Any basically what happens is, this went different direction, but what we have seen in the industry, like first of all, poor documentation, and you're going to see this everywhere you go. Like people like to keep everything in their head and assume that and that's something I have seen in project after project after project. Like those who know, they try to keep it in their head, and you have to get it out of their head. And this is very, very challenging. So they just write one line and they think, oh, they know, I know, so they know. That if something doesn't make sense to you, let them know, hey, we need more information than this. So that's one thing, poor documentation. Like when it comes to requirement, we always face this issue, poor documentation. Next big thing is continuous change of the requirement. That's one big thing, right? The requirement changes frequently, right? They give one thing and then they change it. They're like last minute, they're going to be like, oh, let's do it differently. And once they do it frequently, it has impacts. It's going to impact your timeline, your everything else. So you're already defining this beforehand, saying any changes should be communicated to the testing group so that accordingly test cases can be updated and testing can be planned. Other thing, late delivery of the application. So the other thing is like, let's say I was showing you guys 15 tickets, 2 weeks time. So within this 15 days, testing also should be done. Now, if developers gives you that application on the 14th day, which is late delivery, you cannot test it. If they give you that application, the expectation is like, you should have at least, they should give you application or part of it, at least before halfway. If you have like 2 weeks dedicated, after a week you should get something testable. And now if they're delaying giving you access to that application, that's a risk, and you're defining it here. As a separate test environment. Okay, so that's another QA environment availability. So some project, they don't have a separate QA environment. I have seen that, and they were trying to do that in my project as well. So I did not agree on that. So some maintaining those environments, it costs money. It costs a lot of money and effort. Sometimes you would see people do not like to have a separate environment. They'll just say, hey, just test on dev or test on UAT environment. So that's something, it's a risk. If you don't have an environment for yourself, that's a risk. So you're defining all of these beforehand. Like you're saying, hey, like if this thing happened, like, we would be in risk, and how to mitigate those risks actions are given here. So just understand this. You don't need so much in-depth understanding of this. Acronyms, like, so here, like in the industry, we give a lot of acronyms, and sometimes, like, if this application is given to external client, they may not have understanding. So you're defining, like, what API stands for, what E2E stands for, what UAT stands for, what AQA stands for. All of this you are just defining here. No big deal. This is very simple. Lastly, let's just go back here. Okay, everything we went over in this document except this part. So let's talk about here. Test acceptance criteria. We went over test entry, exit, but we don't have acceptance criteria in that other document. Acceptance criteria. So you enter your testing, you perform your testing, you have your test, you test findings, defects and things like this, and now you exit out of testing. Before you exit out, you need to look at your acceptance criteria. And acceptance criteria is something like, let's say you have an application that is tested and is going to the production, it should go to the production, but it may have some minor bugs. So those bugs are brought up to the business and the client, and whoever needs to be aware of this. You let them know upfront and they accept it, right? They accept like, hey, application is built, we have known issues, we're okay with this going to the production. So there is a criteria defined before you go into your testing, and that is given there. Usually, like, minor bugs, it's okay to have minor bugs in that an application. It's okay to have a few medium bugs, things like this. So these are like, defined prior to going to the testing. Okay, so that's pretty much your test plan, guys. Any questions? This is phase 2 of STLC, your test plan.
Brother, this acceptance criteria, you said there will be documented somewhere, right? In the ticket system there, or?
Test plan. In your test plan, you'll have a section here, just like your entry and exit criteria, you will have test acceptance criteria.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, any other questions, guys? Yeah, you see how you have entry criteria, exit criteria, you will define your acceptance criteria here as well. So that will be. Any other questions, guys?
So that acceptance criteria will be an exit criteria, or it is totally separate?
It could be part of exit criteria, but it should be different. Either or, like, I think it could be same. Acceptance could be part of your exit criteria, or you can define it separately. Because it essentially is the same thing, right? I would say, like, make another section for acceptance criteria.
So these entry criterias and exit criterias are just the checklist we have to follow.
Yeah, same thing with acceptance criteria. Like, let me just show you guys before. I think we went over this before. We have our application went to production not too long ago, and look how many bugs we have in production. If you're seeing my screen, we have, what happened? Oh, they changed the name. AHP. Okay, look how many bugs we have. 31 bugs. So this was accepted by the business stakeholders, saying, okay, we have an application that is built and working, but we know we have these issues. We're going to go ahead and fix it later on. So this was conditional sign off, and they accepted it, and that is pretty much part of your acceptance criteria. Okay, I'm going to stop recording and let's continue the conversation.